Hello, Audioholics. This is Logan, and welcome back to our album reviews. Today, we will be doing a review of Detroit Stories by Alice Cooper. And here to help me do Detroit Stories is Alice Tyler.
No, you didn't even try with that one. Yeah, so we're doing Alice Cooper today, and I really don't
Tyler
have much of a
Pooper.
history with Alice Cooper. I tried my hardest to get into Alice Cooper. I listened to the industrial metal era of albums. I listened to his classic era, like Welcome to My Nightmare and, Billion Dollar Babies and Love It to Death. And I'm not really a fan of Cooper. I appreciate what he is, but I've never really liked him enough to go out of my way to listen to him in my free time. And I would say that this album is even worse for me because I don't even think the music is respectable anymore. It's just boring. It just exists. So I'll go right into my general thoughts about the album, and then we'll have Logan talk about his. So, this record really drags, I think. It goes on for about 45 minutes, I think, or is it 50 minutes? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It's
But it
something.
goes
It's
it
about
goes
fit.
on way too
It
long.
was about 50 minutes, if I recall.
Goes on way too long. It drags. There's multiple tracks that they could have cut. I understand why they did covers on this album, but every
Yeah.
single one of those covers could have been cut and I would have lost nothing from this album. The songwriting overall was very boring and unmemorable. I actually only remember one song off the album. I forget the name of it. I think it was I Hate You. And the only reason I remember it is because of the opening track, like, I hate your bass and the way you play, like some shit like that. It's just the most corny, cringy song of all time. If the only reason I remember your album is because you were cringe, maybe you don't have a good album. The instrumentation isn't even really interesting. This is a Cooper record. Cooper is known for interesting instrumentation, and yet we have none of it to speak of here. The vocals are about as good as you could expect from Cooper at this point in time, but where's all that batshit insane stuff from Welcome to My Nightmare and the industrial album with like the Seven Sins and Love It to Death? Like there's nothing. It's just generic hard rock vocals at this point, and eh, I could have anybody else sing these songs and I would lose nothing. And since this band is called Alice Cooper, I feel like that's a fault of the songwriting and the performance. So, in the end of the day, my personal enjoyment of this album was not great. I would not come back to this album. I do not recommend this album for the reasons that I have already listed. So, what did you think about it, Logan?
I really have no objections to what you really said, and that's a problem because, unlike him, I actually am a pretty big fan of Alice Cooper. Love It to Death, Welcome to My Nightmare, the original, probably one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah.
Um, uh, like the industrial era of Alice Cooper, yeah, it got a little bit maybe goofy at times, but Brutal Planet is still a really good album. So is Dragon Town.
Brutal
Um,
Planet's the one with the Seven Sins, right?
yes,
Yeah, that was cool songwriting wise.
yes. So I will even defend like Zipper's Catches Skin. I might have even mentioned that in my one of my recent vinyl collection videos. It's one I got fairly recently, and it's one that a lot of people unfairly shit on. And I think it's actually not top shelf Cooper, but it's pretty decent as all things considered. But no, Cooper has not been giving it his all lately. And that is really sad. Like, I saw Alice Cooper live as late as 2016, and it was honestly one of the best live concerts I've ever been to. I mean, the theatrics of it, Nina Strauss, I believe her name was, right? Nina
Nita.
Strauss, huh?
Nita.
Sorry. Nita Strauss, who is, I think, most known for her work with the Iron Maidens, an all female, I don't know if they're just an all female metal tribute or an all female Iron Maiden tribute, but she's fantastic on guitar. guitar on this album and most recent Cooper is just pretty standard. Um, Overall, I just don't think there is. I mean, if you're a fan, if you're like a hardcore fan of maybe not Cooper, but you're a hardcore fan of like MC5, Velvet Underground, and Bob Seger, which are the three covers on the album, and you're a fan of like music coming out of Detroit around like the late 60s, early 70s, maybe I could recommend this album, but honestly, I, I in most cases I would just recommend the originals. I will say the One Velvet Underground cover, which I actually don't remember the name of. The
It was
One
just
Velvet
called Rock and Roll.
Yeah, that the Velvet Underground cover, I would actually argue the Cooper version is better. But beyond that, everything else is either just as good or a little bit worse. Do you really have any like?
No, I think that pretty much summarizes everything that
Yeah,
I thought about this. There's really not much to talk about with this album because it was just so boring and unmemorable that I don't
yeah,
really
and
have
it's
much to say about it.
yeah, and it's like really depressing too, because like again,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Alice Cooper, and even you know that Alice Cooper is capable of more. This is a guy who should have retired, I think, years ago. And as much like, look, I go, okay, Alice Cooper is to music as Family Guy is to television. It was good maybe 2 decades ago, or maybe even a decade ago. It was better. But now we are at the point where even though I like Family Guy and I still continue to watch it, mainly just because I hate myself, I think, I want it to end. I want the creator to be put out of, maybe not put out of his misery, because it does seem like Alice genuinely had a genuine fun time making the record. But this is just like what happens when this is what happens when some like 50, 60-year-old dad meets up with his old band buddies from when he was in high school and they rock out. It's like you can enjoy them having fun with each other, but it's not like what they're doing is really fresh anymore. It's not like it really has a purpose to exist other than it's just some people having fun.
Yeah, so let's move on to ratings then.
Yeah,
So I rated this album a 6.6. What did you rate it?
I rated it I rated it a straight 7 out of 10. And
So
yeah,
average together, we give this album an Audioholic score of 6.6 then.
yes.
Yeah,
So
so do you have any closing thoughts?
my closing thoughts are I pray this is not the legacy that Alice Cooper ends on. Like, look, he's in his what, early to mid 70s at this point. He's had a lot of alcohol problems, he's had a lot of substance abuse. I don't like saying this, but he doesn't have that much time left. I really don't like saying that because I think he's amazing. He needs to start working on his Black Star or his 13 or his um well, you know, not Lulu, but you know what I mean? Like he needs to work on his album that will that will
Dude,
kind of close everything together. Maybe you
imagine
can
if Cooper like collaborates with Metallica like Lulu and then he dies just like Lou Reed did.
no, but
I'd listen
like
to
you know what
that.
I'm saying? No, but like you see my point. Like you
What
know,
would they call
put
it? They'd call it
together
Cuckoo.
cuckoo. No, no, but you know what I mean? Like, put out a
Yeah.
magnum opus album, put out a
Yeah.
swan song. Maybe you can, if you still feel like you can do some stuff, maybe put out some singles, maybe go out and keep
EPs.
touring.
Make
But
EPs after that. Don't make another album.
yeah, or make EPs. just like you need to end your legacy, and I pray his legacy doesn't end with Detroit stories, because
That's what we're calling it when Mr. Bungle retires. Their
yes,
legacy.
yes,
Egg.
yes. Well, that's really, I think, all we have to say about this album. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
really recommend it, but like it's not going to, I think if you listen to the album, it's not going to necessarily insult you, and I could see if somebody can get some genuine enjoyment out of it. I didn't, he didn't. I think it was just not a very good album.
Yeah, so did you guys listen to the new Cooper record? What did you think? Tell us in the comments section below. What would you rate it out of 10? Without further ado, we bid you
Audio
audio do.
do.
See you
Bye,
next
everyone.
time.